applause.
Thanks, bro. Hi, everybody. I talk pretty fast, so if I need to slow down, just raise your hand and say slow down. So my name is Aaron Foster. I'm a DC firefighter. I've been a firefighter for 15 years with DC, about 21 years total. So my free time is a little bit different than y'all's. So I work 24 hours on, I have 72 hours off. I got guys from Annapolis here, I got guys from Baltimore here. They're also firefighters who do the same thing that I'm doing. So if we can do it, I'm sure everybody in here can do it. So everybody in here is an either aspiring real estate investor or a real estate investor. So everybody next to you can be either an asset or a competition. Assets are obviously going to be the bigger draw for you guys. If you have competition, that means you're fighting with them. Everybody here can learn something from each other. So at a meetup like this, you really want to network and get to know everybody around you just to build your relationships. And that's the kind of the key thing I'm going to talk about in this presentation is the meetups and the relationships, because it's kind of helped me along to where I am now today. Jay. So what's your motivation? Like, why are you here? Why do you do it? My motivation is a multifaceted aspect. So for me, I'll tell you a little bit about my history. I bought my first house when I was about 22 years old in College Park, Maryland. I bought it next to the Metro because I knew Metro's not going anywhere. University of Maryland's not going anywhere. I was going to house hack where I have people paying my rent down for me and renting from me. So for me, that was kind of like my first step in the right direction by myself. The first house I ever did, I was about 10 years old with my father in Wheaton in Veers Mill Village, flipping a house out there, holding a jackhammer when I was 10 years old. I think there's laws against that now, but back then it was fair game. So you really focus on what you want to do and why you want to be a real estate investor. It could be a number one of these things. If you watch too much HGTV, for stability, for longevity of your life, to retire and retire earlier and have extra income coming in, it really depends on what your focus is going to be. So if it is one of these things or whatever it is, focus on that and that'll be your driving factor. If it's just kind of like, I'm throwing a dart at a dartboard and this is what I might want to do today, this is what I want to do this year, it's probably not going to work for you. You're going to kind of have to have something driven you to the next thing. So Carnegie came here. He was an immigrant from Scotland. This is one of his famous quotes. He's a multi-millionaire. In today's numbers, he's multi-billionaire. Maybe he was a billionaire back then. This is just one of the quotes I kind of like to revert back to. Real estate is something that's always going to have money. You look at places that invest in real estate, it's like a lot of the big names. McDonald's, they're always located in a specific area. CVS, same thing. Why? Because their real estate is key factor in their business. So you want to do the same thing. If you're going to buy properties, you want to buy and hold especially, you want to have key areas that you invest in. I have properties from Frederick County down to Charles County and everything in between. So for me, mine is very strategically planned. I have one next to the military base. I have one next to a good school system. I have some just because they're great buy and hold. So kind of focus on what the areas you want to focus on is. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers here in a couple minutes. What do you want to do? Do you want to flip? Like HGTV, you buy a house for $100,000, you sell it for $200,000, you think you're making $100,000. Or do you want to buy and hold? You want to have somebody else pay your mortgage down, your equity goes up, and cash flow. Which one do you want to do? Do you want to do, we were just talking in the back a couple minutes ago about buying campgrounds or storage units. Why? Because you got to find your niche and what you enjoy doing. If something stresses you out, you're not going to stick with it, you're not going to make money off of it, you're just going to invest in another headache. So really focus on what you want to do. So there's several types of real estate investing, which we talked about going into this a couple minutes ago. Flipping, wholesaling, group investing, syndication, REIT. I'm going to kind of highlight and tell stories about each one of these. Building, developing, tax liens, buy and hold, for appreciation or cash flow. Like there's multi-facets for real estate. It's not just you go into this one avenue and we stick with it. Why? Because that well might dry up. Back to 2007, 2008, 2009 times, that well is dried up. We are not buying houses for pennies on the dollar anymore. It's just not happening. We're still at a higher market, whether it be Trump in the office being a real estate guy or just how the market flows. We're in a very strong real estate market still that everybody's kind of worried about being, are we inflated, are we not? Is it stable for the next 4 years, is it not? So make sure you have other avenues and other ways to get out of the business deals that you get into. All right, so what's wholesale? Wholesale is, Brian and I were just talking about this in the back. I have a house. What's your name?
Alok.
Alok?
Yeah.
All right, I have a house. Alok comes to me and says, hey, can I buy your house for this amount of money? And I say, sure, Alok, I'll sell you this house for this amount of money. He says, well, I don't want to buy it from you. I just want the contract to sell it to somebody else. So my $100,000 house, Alok goes over to Moon. And Moon says, I'll buy that house for $150,000. So me and Moon go to settlement, Alok gets $50,000 finding fee. That's how wholesale works. You find the people who want to buy their house off, sell their house off market, and then you find somebody who wants to buy it off market. And you get the finder's fee in between. So this is a great way to get your feet wet into real estate without having to come out of pocket. That being said, it depends on the area you want to be in. So this doesn't work very well in, say, Montgomery County or Howard County because everybody there knows that their houses are worth. They want to sell it for top dollar. You go to a lower income area and you might have a better chance of getting something like this done. That being said, it's not unheard of, but it's not probable. You're going to put a lot more work in trying to find the $1 million houses or the $500,000 houses than you are in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. So this is just basically everything I just said. You get your finder's fee without having to really you do a lot of legwork, but you don't do a whole lot of out-of-pocket work. Crowdfunding, real estate investing, trust and syndication. So these are different things, different facets of the real estate investment. You can read all this. Anybody who wants these, I can email them to you, or you can go on my Facebook page and you can download it off my site. But the simple concept for this is me, Moon, and Alok are going to combine our monies for a syndication to buy something with an agreed upon deal of who gets what percentage. That's syndication, the quick and dirty of it. Real estate investment trust is where, what's your name? Dan owns a real estate investment trust. He's got a whole bunch of properties. He says, I want investors to invest in my real estate trust. And in return, if I'm going to give Dan some money, Dan's going to give me a percentage as a return. It could be 5%, 10%, 20%. Depends how much I invest and what kind of rules Dan wants to set for us. So you can have a whole room of real estate investments, trusts. Or you can go into real estate investments categories in the stock market. They usually have a lower return. The private local ones usually have a little bit of a higher return. So it's just another facet of what we can kind of focus on for real estate. Crowdfunding, you're looking at like the CrowdStreet, the Fundrise, the groundfloor.coms. Same concept. You put your money in, you get a return. They invest big numbers and big groups all over the country. They're the big national names. That's it. I haven't done a whole lot with this. Syndication is my next step for my own financial learning for real estate. Jay? All right, so here's a tip. Why do you buy in areas that have a good school system? Because that's where people want to move their kids to. That's where economic growth is. That's where the development is. If it has a good school system, it's a pretty good indicator that they're in the move in the right direction, right? If I had a bad school system and I have a younger family, which is most of the people buying nowadays are younger families, are they going to look in areas that are like a D-rated school system or a 2 out of 10? No, I wouldn't. I don't want my kids going to a 2 out of 10. I want my kids in, well, obviously a 10 out of 10, but I can't afford that yet. But that's a good tip to have. You always want to look at the economic development around the area that you're going to buy in, whether it be a flip or a buy and hold. You want to look for something that you're going to have the best bang for your buck and the easiest way to have an exit strategy for a house or a property. All right, so calculations. You guys can read over this. I'm going to give you the calculations off the top of my head. So I buy a house for $100,000. I'm going to use real round numbers, right? When I buy a house for $100,000, what other fees am I going to incur when I close? Does anybody know? Transfer fee. Do you know what the percentage is? 2%. 2% transfer and title to the government, give or take. It's like 1 point something something. So we'll say 2% for a round number, right? Then your closing fees. Anybody have an idea? 6%. So 6% and 2%. I'm not buying a $100,000 house. I'm buying a $108,000 house. 6% and 2% is 8, right? So say I sell that house for $200,000. I close it, transfer and title fees, government gets their cut. 6% goes to the realtor, so I'm losing 8% again. So I'm losing how much? 16%. So what is my actual sales price? $184,000. So 184,000 minus 108,000. Who's got a calculator? I'm not doing math. 76,000. So that's your profit margin. Okay. So now our 100,000 profit margin is now 70 whatever thousand, 76,000. Thank you. So 76,000 is our profit margin. Our buy and hold costs. So say we have it for 3 months renovation. Our taxes, our insurance is higher because it's a renovation property. Our utilities. So we'll say round number, maybe $1,000 a month, right? So 3 months is $3,000 less. So 76,000, now we're down to 73. Average renovation cost is $30,000 to $50,000, okay? So we're at, we'll say 40,000 for a round number. So that 73,000 down is now down to 33,000, right? Now Uncle Sam, we sell it. Thank God, it's off the books, on to the next one. Uncle Sam now takes 40% at the end of the year of that $33,000 that you just made. As long as you keep your receipts. If you don't keep your receipts, you're not getting all that money back. So that $100,000 that we thought we were getting between 100 and 200,000 is now down to 33,000 minus 40% in taxes. Does that make sense? No. How much? About 15,000. 15,000. Okay, the numbers guys up here. I'm glad I'm going to stand over here. I can't hear you. I need the numbers. So for me, right now, I'm focusing on buy and hold. Why? Because these numbers are tough. I just sold a house in Howard County, Mount Airy. They actually did my funding for it. And I walked away with a $5,000 profit after everything was said and done. This is like months of headache. A car's trailer tire let loose and took out my front porch. Real estate agent turned off one of the, I have 2 heating systems. They closed one of the heating systems off, thinking the other one was on, and froze my pipes. So after all was said and done on this $322,000 sale house, I made a $5,000 profit after 4 or 5 months. Is that worth it? No. I agree. So does anybody have questions about these numbers? Is it clear as mud? Clear as mud, all right. Jay? So this is everything we just kind of went over in terms of the numbers we just went through. I had one wholesaler and one investor try to sell me houses in the last 2 weeks. The profit margin on one of the houses was $14,000 on a $500,000 house before taxes, and the other one was, he estimated, it was in Annapolis, he estimated the resale value off of Grant Street, South Annapolis. Yeah, you guys are the Annapolis guys, come on. Great, South Annapolis. So he estimated the house value at $450,000. We ran the comps for that neighborhood. It was off of Taylor Street. And I had estimated around $350,000 to $375,000. So he thought there was a $100,000 valuation because he valued properties around that neighborhood, not in that neighborhood. So when somebody tries to sell you a house, make sure you know your comps, especially if it's an off-market deal, because a bank is going to do it for you if it's an on-market deal and you have to get a regular loan for it. But if it's an off-market deal, you have to know your numbers, because that would have been a $70,000, $80,000 loss for me buying and holding this house. I couldn't rent for what my mortgage would be. So all your numbers are very, very important. Your 6%, your 2%, your actual purchase price, all your holding. If you, like I said, if you guys want to go through this, I'll send you the PowerPoint after this. Jay, next. All right, so what are some of the obstacles we face? Finding deals, funding deals, being realistic about the after repair value. If I buy a house, I'm like, this is going to be the best house in the neighborhood. I'm going to get top dollar for it, right? Well, it depends. What time frame are you looking at? Last 3 months, last 6 months, last year? If a house sold in a same neighborhood a year ago, it might not be the same valuation it is right now. Say in 2007, actually I'll give you a prime example. I have a house in College Park, or had a house in College Park. Bought it for $253. At the height of the market, I was $389. I thought I was a god. I was like, I'm the smartest man out here. I bought a house in College Park and I'm up $150,000. Market crashed. 6 months later, a house across the street from me sold for $110 at auction. I'm not a god anymore. I'm just a low life. But I was making cash flow for my rentals, which is what made me hold on to it for a long term. I was still cash flowing something like $800 a month, which for me, that was good. I'm 22 years old. I'm young, fresh out of college age. I'm a rookie in the fire department. So for me, that was fantastic. So know your numbers. Your numbers are the big things. This is what we talked about already, the 40%. 40% of the profit goes to Uncle Sam. Finding the deals, obstacles. There is no magic way to find deals. There's not some tree where us investors go and like, ooh, I'll take this $150,000 one today. I'll take this $2 million one today. It doesn't happen. You have to really kind of put your foot forth, your best foot forth, and figure out what's the path I want to go to find houses. Jay? All right, so I'm going to give Jase Scott spoke here a while ago. He's a big name in Bigger Pockets. He's a big investor in the area, used to be in the area. He just moved to Florida. If you don't know how to estimate your cost, this is one of the biggest problems that people run into for investing. Why? Because how much can I redo a bathroom for? For me, I can probably do a bathroom for about $1,500. I'm doing it myself. If I'm paying somebody, it's about $5,000 to $8,000. If I want to go high end, and it's a really, really big bathroom with marble from Italy, then I'm doing a $10,000 bathroom. So if you don't know your numbers, you can really step in the wrong pile of dirt. So if you don't know how to do it, here's your ways to figure out the best way to estimate them. Make friends with contractors. I have a lot of friends that are contractors. I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood. A lot of the guys I grew up with, they do this kind of work. So I can say, hey, what is this going to cost me? Hey, what does this cost me? I just had a tree taken down. I was like, it's an $800 tree, $3,500. But it saves me the headache of the neighbor being safe, because the tree was starting to die off. It was leaning over their house. I was worried it was going to kill them if it came down, because her tree fell down and took out 2 neighbors' cars, the fence, and the power lines. So I didn't want the same thing to happen for me, so I took it down for $3,500. It's not an $800 tree. I was wrong with my estimation. Get quotes from multiple contractors. It doesn't take you but time and energy to call a whole bunch of contractors that are recommended by other people, whether it be one of the websites or through friends or through Yelp. There's a whole bunch of ways to find different contractors. But get a minimum of 3. You can get 10 if you want to, because the numbers are going to vary depending on your materials, your time, your cost, how busy they are. There's a whole number of factors to play into it. So get a bunch of contractor quotes and be friendly and cordial and keep them on the books and respond to them. If you want to keep good and good graces with your contractors, respond and say, hey, this is what I got it for. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I appreciate your time coming out here. And then maybe down the road, they might be able to do something else for you cheaper. 3 is Jase Scott's book. He gave me a little shout out in the back of it, so I'm giving him a shout out today. It's a really good tool to have. It's kind of a nationally based, your estimate of how much it would cost you for each item in a house. And that's it. Next. All right, rentals. This is where I'm focusing on now. The tax write-offs. You're not paying capital gains. The renters are paying down your mortgage and your equity isn't growing. So if you're buying a $100,000 house and you're making a profit of, we'll say $500 a month, you can have that house virtually paid off in about 15 years, and now you have a $100,000 asset, right? But on top of that, the value of that property might increase. So not only are you paying down the mortgage and increasing your equity, you're waiting for the property value to increase so you can sell it for more later on if you want to. Renters paying down, getting the cash flow, it's your appreciation. So here's my thing with when you get renters. If I go to, I know DC, so if I go to Deanwood in DC, it's one of the rougher up and coming neighborhoods. It's not up and there yet, but it's up and coming, it's nice. I know that my pick of renters might not be the same as I get in Potomac or Bethesda Chevy Chase or up here in Columbia. So are you going to get good renters that are going to take care of your property? You have to do some really good vetting. A friend of mine just had a property in Baltimore County where her renter wrecked her house and did $30,000 in damage. It's only a $150,000, $175,000 condo. So do you want to have good renters in good areas or a high cash flowing property in an area where you might not get the pick of the litter? So that's something to keep in mind with a property. Here's your drawbacks. If I'm making, say, $400 a door and my mortgage, we'll say $500, I need round numbers. Actually, I'll go over here again, I need numbers guy. Say I make $500 a door, right? So my property, I'm profiting $500. My mortgage is $1,500. It sits there vacant for a month while I'm trying to find a renter to fill the space. How much money am I losing for that year? Just for the year. If I do a year contract and I lose $500 and my mortgage is $1,500, for that month it's vacant, I'm losing 3 months. 3 months of income. Because I'm coming out of pocket $1,500 and I'm only getting $500. Does that make sense? I'm not a math teacher. So basically, if you have a vacancy for a long time, in this area, let's be honest, you're buying properties for the $100,000 to $200,000 range. Your mortgage is right around $1,500, maybe $2,000, depends on your location. So if you're vacant for a month and you don't have that profit coming in, profit after off your property manager, after your taxes, after your insurance, after everything else. If you don't have that profit coming in, you might take a loss. And if something happens to that property where you have somebody do $30,000 in damage to a property, now it's sitting vacant for 3-4 months, or whatever the number it takes her to renovate her property. So for her, she's had, say, 3 months of vacancy, so her mortgage is $1,500. So $1,500, $3,000, $4,500. She's losing her income, a profit of $500 a month. So $4,500 plus another $1,500, $6,000 she's potentially losing. So make sure you know where you're going to and the people you're renting to. Evictions, I just bought a set of 3 houses. So we'll go back to another story. My HVAC guy is a firefighter with me, top-notch guy. His father-in-law owns a bunch of real estate. So I've got a really good relationship with him, and I know his father-in-law and his sons. And he had a 9-year eviction in PG County in Temple Hills, 9 years. It's the longest I've ever heard of. So he took a loss of $70,000 on taxes alone, plus the income for those 9 years. The only thing he got was her down payment, which is $100,000 on the property. So if you have a bad eviction, say PG County, because I just know PG County is long, you're losing at least 3 months of income. You got to calculate that in. So 3 months of $1,500 a month, say $4,500. How many months or years is it going to take me to recover that money if I'm profiting, say, $500? It's a long time, ma'am.
So for that example that you gave of your friend who said it lost,
yes,
damage to
30,000, Baltimore County.
Can you put in an insurance claim for that or no?
I don't know how she handled it. I don't know what she has on hers. I don't know. She can sue her in civil court. It was Section 8. So Section 8, she hasn't got no money. So she's probably not going to recover, to be honest with you. Bad rumors, the damage of the property, that's what we just talked about. So do you self-manage or do you self-repair? If you self-repair and self-manage, you're going to save money. So my property manager, now I've got a phenomenal property manager. Back to relationships, his cousin was one of my chiefs in DC. His nephew is one of my sergeants in DC. I trust him. He has all of my properties now because I trust him. My last property manager cost me about $5,000 in 1 year because he would replace stuff and fix stuff and repair stuff that wasn't in the contract. He would just, oh yeah, sure, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. It's not my money. So I was like, why is my checks so small? Like, why am I not getting any money off this property? He's like, oh, well, we bought them a new dishwasher for $700. $700 dishwasher? Man, where are you shopping at? So I deal with people enough at work. I don't want to have conversations at 2 o'clock in the morning with renters who are upset about a light bulb going off. So my property manager handles all this stuff. My repairs, I'm a jack of all trades, I'm a master of none. So I can go out and build half a house, but it comes down to what's my time worth? Can you do it? Can you go on YouTube and learn how to change a toilet bowl? Yeah, absolutely. But is it worth your time to go there and an hour to go to Home Depot, an hour to go to the house, drop the toilet off, and install it, and then an hour back home? So you're at 3 hours of your day. It's going to cost you probably $120. Is it worth it for you to lose 3 hours, $120? It depends on you. If you want to work hard, you don't mind getting your hands dirty, then do it. If you want to hire somebody, now you're probably tripling. Now you're probably in the $300 range to buy the toilet, have somebody go out there and install it and fix it for you. Is it worth it to you? It all depends on your personality and your capabilities. Jay. All right, buy and hold. So for me, my numbers are $400. I want to make at least $400 a month profit. So it's $4,800 a year. I wrote this down. I don't need him right now for this one. So $4,800 a year is my profit. Why? Why do I need at least $400? It's because for me, if something goes wrong on a property, HVAC, leak, roof, whatever it might be, after a year or two, that $4,800 will cover my costs. Now there's guys out there who are getting like $50 a door. Cool, that works for you. My property range, where I'm profiting, for what I'm buying makes more sense at least $400. If I'm going out and buying a $50,000 house and I'm profiting $400, then I'm king of the castle. But that's not necessarily always the case. My stuff is not that cheap. My focus area is Frederick down to Southern Maryland. So I'm not usually buying much for under $150,000 to $200,000. So on top of the $400, this is after the property management, the taxes, and everything else. You got to set your own numbers and figure out what works for you. A minimum of 1% of the purchased property every month. So if I buy it for $100,000, I want to make $1,000 a month, right? Of that $1,000, I want to make $400 profit. Any questions on that? Cool. I want to be able to get all my money back within 2 or 3 years. I don't want a bunch of my money, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 wrapped up into a property. So I want to make it back. How do I make it back? I can either refinance, get all my money back. I can cash flow $400 or give or take, get all my money back. But I don't want $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 wrapped up into a house, because I can use that money to buy another property, to renovate another property, flip another property if it comes down to it. For me, I have one property. It's in Indian Head. It's 2 houses I bought for $160,000. I have $100,000 in renovations tied up into it, and I've got $30,000 still wrapped up into it after my renovation. Why? Why does that make sense for me? Because that house is going to appreciate. I know it's going to appreciate. I know it's going to cash flow for a long, long time. So I don't mind that money being wrapped up in there, because I'm going to get it back. And it's going to be an asset that's going to appreciate more than most other assets out there. So for me, that's why I focus on these things. Property manager, so my property, the property manager varies everywhere. So the one I have now, he does 10%, I'm sorry, not 10%. He does the first month's rent and then 8% of every month thereafter, which equals just under 2 months of the income. My last property manager, the one I don't like, he was first month's rent and actually ended up being 11% of every month, because he couldn't find a renter for the agreed upon price, so we dropped the price, ended up being about 11% a month. So when you go into property managers, make sure you know who you're dealing with. One of the reasons I lost money with him, for 2 months, he was not advertising on MLS. He was only advertising on the free sites. I didn't realize that at first until I had one of my realtor's friends pull up the address, and she says, "You're not listed anywhere. You're only listed on Zillow, Trulia, and something else." I'm like, so I called him and said, "Hey man, what's going on?" He said, "Oh man, you know, we get just as much traffic from this as we do anywhere else." I was like, "Yeah, but I'm losing out on any potential foot traffic from the MLS, from other realtors, from Remax, from whoever it might be." He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it." So am I being stupid? I'll be honest, I was being stupid and lazy. I was like, all right, you know, we'll work it out, whatever, if it'll work out. So I lost 2 months, and then he was a terrible property manager, cost me a lot of money. So whoever you use, make sure you vet them very, very well. Look at their Yelp reviews, talk to their past tenants, talk to their past renters, talk to their customers, talk to anybody you can to make sure they're quality people. Same thing as your contractors. So this is the breakdown of everything we just went over. I get a $150,000 house. Rents, my mortgage is $1,500. Rents for $1,500. Mortgage is $1,100. You profit $400 a month before the property manager. 400 months times 12 months, $4,800. Total at the end of the profit of the year after my property management fees, the first month's rent, minus 8%, $99 a month for the 11 months, $968. My $4,800 is now down to $2,732 a year. Divide that by 12 months. Is that worth it for you? For me, it is. For you, it might not be. I don't know. So the way you negate that is do your own property management. Get those phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning for a snake in the yard.
Take into account tax avoidance, like in depreciation.
So no, to answer your question, no. This is a very kind of a bare minimum calculation to start off with. If you want to get in depreciation of the property and all that, then it's a much longer conversation. It is. You're absolutely right. It is. For a baseline starting point, back to the basics for tonight, I think this is a good one, but that's great. The depreciation is definitely a tool in your toolbox you need to pay attention to, because you can write stuff off on taxes and this number would go up. It's not cash on, this is your cash on hand, versus depreciation is going to be the money you make after you depreciate on taxes. Yeah, exactly. Jay? Buy smart. Things you got to know, we talked about this before. Closing costs is 6% closing, 2% transfer and title, your holding costs, your rental costs, your average closing assistance. So in a neighborhood, you always want to look at, okay, I'm selling a house for $100,000, right? Or 200 or 300 or 500. Are they giving closing assistance on all these properties? So a lot of people ask for, say, 3% help in closing costs. Do you factor that in when you sell the house? Yes, absolutely. Why? Because the average person, no, let's see what we got. A good realtor will tell you, the buyer, they are giving an average of 2, 3, 6% closing assistance on a property. You should ask for it in your negotiations. So $100,000, you get 3% back in negotiations. So you're now losing an additional 3% on top of the 6% and the 2% transfer and title. So 6% realtor fees, 2% transfer and title, 3% assistance. So now you're losing 11% of this property. Does that make sense? Questions? Got it. All right, my rules. I made this mistake a couple months ago. I bought on a double yellow line. I bought up in Howard County. They were my lender on it. It was in Mountain area off of Ridge Road. When I bought it, for some reason, I saw no traffic. I was like, sweet, this is a backcountry road. Nobody's going to drive down it. When I went to sell it, guess what there was? Lots of traffic. Lots and lots of traffic. So that's a big turnoff for people. So for me, now, this is one of my new rules. No double yellow lines, because double yellow lines usually equate to a busy road. Busy road deters buyers and it deters renters. Not always the case, but probably the case. No major power lines. There's a lot of tests that have been done that say power lines don't cause cancer, but the stigma is there. In people's heads, they say, oh, I heard it might cause cancer. I don't want to take a chance to rent or buy there, so I'm not going to, the market value for that house is not going to be there. So a lot of people are turned off by big power lines. Train tracks. Depends on where you are. When I first started looking in my early 20s, I was looking up in Brunswick and Knoxville, up in Frederick County. And I was like, oh man, waterfront property, right in the Seal Canal. Yeah, I get there, I was like, where's train tracks come from? I didn't see these on Google Maps. So train tracks are a huge deterrent. Why? Because down here, where we're probably investing at, train tracks are a big turnoff because they're loud, they're noisy, they come across at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's just noisy. The house I have in College Park is half mile from the train tracks. I can still hear them at night when me and my fiance are sitting outside. Does that bother me? No, because I'm in College Park and I can walk to the metro. Will it bother the average person? Maybe. Same thing as living by BWI. If you have planes going overhead all the time, it can get annoying. If you're from there and you're used to it, it might not bother you. But for me, for investments, I stay away from them. Next to loud industrial commercial areas, I was looking at a property in Frederick, and it was trucks coming and going all the time, all the time. Not only were they coming and going all the time, they were also dropping a bunch of stuff. You had gravel on the road. You had concrete in the road. You had dirt in the road. You had filler in the road. There's literally everything. So if I'm driving on the road, my nice shiny new truck, it now has like stuff kicked up all over the back. I have tar on it. I have concrete under my quarter panels. So for me, that's a big deterrence. If you can get it cheap enough and find renters in there, the renters who will come in there, in my experience, might not be the best renters you want because they're willing to live anywhere. A lot of these things are live anywhere. Might not be the case, but in my experience it is. Had this happen, neighbor's house looks like a horror show. So I went to one house and bought it. It was the son, the father, the uncle, and the house I bought used to be the aunt. There's a whole family lived in the same block. So the father of the neighbor came over and said, oh yeah, we're working on the house. We're going to put new windows in. We're doing the siding and this, that, and other. 6 months later, haven't done the windows, haven't done the siding. House looks like a horror show. Neighbors are turned off by it because they don't want to live next to White Trash Mac, whoever his guy's name is. So make sure where you're buying it is not going to be next to a halfway house with people passed out in the front yard. I know that because I'm a firefighter. We run them all the time. So I don't want to live next to a halfway house where people are drunk or drugged up, whatever the case may be, and affecting your quality of life. Next to a firehouse or police station. So my firehouse is in Adams Morgan in DC. They just knocked down the original farmhouse next to my firehouse. They paid $1 million for the land. I think the build out was like 1.8. It was 9 condos. The top 2 units sold for $1.2 million each, and then everything after that was a profit of around $3 or $4 million. So a bunch of people will come knock on the door. Excuse me, are you guys busy? What do you mean? Do you guys run a lot of calls? Well, this is DC. How often do you guys go out? Well, last year we went out 4,000 times. The fire truck, the ambulance went out about 8,000 times. So is it loud when you guys go out? Well, it's a fire truck, it's a firehouse. To me, it's not. I can't hear anymore, but yeah, to you it might be. So it's deterred a lot of people. So DC, doesn't matter where you are. No matter where you are in DC and you buy it, it's going to be expensive. It could be next to a firehouse or police station. It could be next to any number of these things. It's going to be expensive because it's DC. Same thing for New York, San Francisco, Boston. Undesirables. I like that term. Undesirables are people who are going to affect your property value. I got friends that lived in Baltimore and lived in a very nice neighborhood, and they would always come home to the undesirables passed out on their front porch. It could be people coming from the bar, it could be the homeless, it could be the overdoses. But you don't want to be in areas where they're going to affect your property value and your quality of life. And this is what all this is about, is your quality of life. The better the quality of life, the more you can charge in rent. Jay. All right, so in real estate, you deal with a lot of obstacles. Obstacles you can overcome. That's how you got to look at it. You got a lot of small fires, we say. Small fire, you can just kick some dirt on it, put it out. Big fires is like, a tree fell in the house. Can't live in there for 3-6 months. Find the humor in the little things. It's not a big deal. You'll move past it, whether it be in life or in real estate. It's going to come to a time where you have to deal with it. I had a renter recently. She overloaded the freezer, and blocked the cold aspect of it, the blower, and wasn't freezing all her food. So she asked me to come take a look at it. I said, okay, just move the food away from the blower and it'll cool everything off. While I was there, I noticed the stove was on. She wasn't home. The stove was on, and there was a big vat of grease in one of those turkey things. What are those big pots called? Turkey pot? Turkey pot. So a couple of days, a fryer, yeah, thank you. So it was full of grease. A couple of days later, I got a call. Well, our pipes are backed up now. Oh, all right, I'll swing by. I'm at a house across the street. Came over, I looked at the way the pipe chase runs, goes down to the basement, goes into another drainage field, and then goes out to public sewer. There was grease all over the basement. I was like, did you pour grease down the drain? No, I ain't pouring no grease down the drain. It wasn't me. Come on. So I had to have a plumber come out and snake the drain out. It was like $600, I think it was. And he was like, hey, somebody put a bunch of baby wipes and grease down. It was like your 2 ultimate factors for backing up a drain. I was like, didn't pull grease down the drain, huh? Okay. So I laugh about it now. Then I'm like, do I want to do this myself? I've got the snake to run 75 feet out. Do I want to stand in this and get dirty? Or do I want to pay somebody else $500 for them to stand in it and get dirty? What do you think I did? You guys have a lot of faith in me. There was a time in my life where I've been like, all right, next one, Jay. I like this quote. Some people look for beautiful places, others try to make it beautiful. So we all look for the house as lipstick on a pig. Oh man, the house is just dirty. We'll just paint it up and turn around and sell it for a profit. That's not really the case anymore. It's not really realistic. It happens, it's possible, but it's not probable. I found a house in Annapolis, back to Annapolis again, and I was like, oh man, this is a great house. All it needs is like some updating, some painting, it'll look good. It's on Clay Street. Yeah, Clay Street. I was like, man, Ian and I talked about this. I was like, man, it's priced like a Baltimore row house. This is pretty good. I went there, and it was the undesirables. It was, you ever go to a place where people look at you and say, you don't belong here? That looks like, it was that look. I was like, I'm just pulling through. I'm just going to the bar. Don't mind me. But it was lipstick on a pig, and it was for a reason. I didn't think Annapolis had rundown areas. I mean, I'm not from Annapolis. I didn't spend much time there. But it was on Clay Street. It was a rougher neighborhood. And come to find out from another investor, she had foundation issues that she wasn't disclosing to people, which is not legal, but she wasn't doing it. He said the house was settling when he went to look at it. And it was like sinking a significant amount, like up to a foot in some areas. And what they did was they patched up a bunch of the drywall, cleaned it all up, and made it look pretty, and hid all of the issues. So lipstick on a pig sounds like a good idea. Do your due diligence to go and make sure that something else is not going on. House in College Park, they put an addition on. They didn't pour footers for the addition. The house sank. The whole house the addition was pulling off the house. So a investor went in there. He painted the whole house. He patched up all the drywall work, tore the floors out, and then covered them all up so it didn't look like there was issues in there. Never re-poured footers, never fixed the issue, and turned around and sold it for 100 and some odd thousand profit. Don't be that guy, because the karma will come back and get you. So if you can find a lipstick on a pig, buy it. Come find me. I'll buy it with you. We'll partner on it. But I'll tell you if it's a good deal or not if you do your due diligence and figure out is this something that I actually need to put more money into than, you know, $10,000? All right, renovate the neighborhood spec. If I live in College Park, which I do, I want to renovate the house. Well, College Park's changing. I don't want to put marble in my bathrooms. I don't want to put $800 Thompson Creek windows in my house. Why? Because my neighborhood spec calls for builder grade. Everything is virtually builder grade in College Park because a lot of the investors that come in there want to rent to college kids. So for me, it doesn't make sense for me to go high end and spend that extra money because it's not going to appraise if you compare it to other houses. If I spend $100,000 on renovations and only needed $20,000 renovations, I'm not going to make that money back up, that $50,000 or $80,000 that I over-renovated a house for. So look and see what has sold, not just on the market, but what has sold and how they're renovated, because that's what you want to do. Find out what the highest number is that renovated sold for and do it similar to that. All right, so I'll give you these a couple pictures I've taken in a couple properties I've been to. So this is a house, a tree hit this house 5 years ago, I think it was. And he left the hole in the roof and put a tarp over for 5 years. So it leaked into the bathroom. He was still living there. He was still showering in this bathroom. It's the only bathroom in the house. How much do you think it cost me to change it from this rust, it's rust to this? $425. When you see stuff like this is why I say do your due diligence and look back at the numbers, because $400 later, I had a guy come out here and bondo it up just like a car, clear it and spray it, and now it's rented, and I make a good amount of profit on it. Say you get something like this. So this is a train track. These are retaining walls. This is the wall falling in. We see this all over the place. How much do you think per square foot something like this would be for weight bearing? Guess. $200 what? Square foot? That's about right for a small retaining wall. For a higher end retaining wall like this, $1,000 a square feet. So you go out to Lake Linganore where they're all on hillsides and in rock, you're looking at potentially $1,000 a square foot to put a retaining wall up there. For a small one like a driveway, you can get away with not putting, you can go to the Home Depot and get the small blocks. Roof. This house looks scary. You can't really see it because I've blocked it. It's a nice looking house, nice looking front, nice looking facade, but the roof is scary looking. Do you guys know how to estimate a roof? About. When you estimate a roof, you're doing by square. 10 by 10 section is a square. How many squares are on the house? So you can have somebody come out and replace this section of the roof for under $2,000, or the whole roof on this house that you can't see because I've locked it for about $10,000. So don't let something like this deter you from buying a beautiful house with a nice facade and nice driveway just because it's kind of beat up and broken up looking. Mold is gold. I got a bunch of friends that do mold remediation. They say mold is gold. This little bit of mold right here is in a window and it deterred a whole bunch of buyers. Why? Because everybody's like, black mold's going to kill me. And it probably will if you don't remediate it. This is one small corner. Do you know how much this costs to remediate? Cut it out, drywall it, clean it, kills it, bleach it, and put it all back together. $300, cost me $300 to do this. This is not a house I own, this is a house I was working on. So when you go in, some houses, God forbid, some of these houses I've been in, they have spider webs of mold just going everywhere. They're disgusting. Like, those are serious issues. Something's going on with the houses. Cinder block has a 20 to 30 year rating on it. Most of the houses in our area were built back in the 50s, 60s, right? So they're reaching the end, if not past the life of cinder block. So water is protruding into the houses in a lot of these basements, so it causes a lot of mold. So some of these houses, it's not just mold you have to worry about, it's taking all the drywall and framing down, and then reframing everything up, and then rebuilding all the block, cinder block, or repouring a new foundation. So when you see stuff, make sure you have an idea what's going on. All right, so here is the bathroom with the rusted toilet. The tree hit the roof. The tarp was on it for 5 years. Power wash, changed these out, new windows. We had to level the whole house. We had to lift the whole house up. It's not as big of a deal as you think it is. It's $1,200 to lift the whole house. Put new sill plates in, repair all the drywall, fix it, make it look good and healthy and safe again. This was a $20,000 renovation for this house. There's more that goes on inside, but I don't want something like this to scare you. This is the worst looking house in that neighborhood, second worst looking house in the neighborhood. There's one that was worse. So for here, this is what you want. This is the scary house in the neighborhood with the overgrown grass. This is where you want to go put a door hanger on and say, hey, I'm interested in buying your house. Hey, here's my number. Call me if you're interested in selling. When I bought this house, there was like 15 notes on these doors saying they want to buy this house. I was like, I got it first.
Why did you lift it?
The sill plates were rotted away and the house is sagging. So we had to lift it up, put new sill plates on, and then fix the damage from the water. So we tore the drywall out, tore the framing out, put it all back together so it was safe and healthy and clean.
How long did that take?
That house, I don't know, my fiance, just that?
Yeah.
To lift the house took us 8 hours. It's not hard. I had to lift my grandma had a farmhouse in Bethesda. She bought it back when it was still farmland. We had to lift that when I was a kid. I was like 11 years old with a shovel with my dad, getting rid of stuff with the bottle jacks, lifting these houses up. That's not really the right way to do it, but that's how we did it back in 1980 something or other. So it's not as entailed as some people think. So this is on a basement. Once you get into crawl spaces, small crawl spaces especially, it's a little more tedious because you gotta get somebody in there, you gotta run blocks all the way across the house. If it has a basement, it's easier. If it doesn't have a basement, it's on like a foundation. I just looked at a house last week in Kent Island that was on a poured foundation that was settling and breaking. You're not gonna lift it. You're gonna have to destroy the house to lift it. So, back to the small things. This is a house off of Ridge Road in Mount Airy. This is a tire. This is the front post. This is somebody's trailer whose tire let loose and took out my front post. Small fire. Does it suck? My buddy called me. It's good. Back to relationships. One of the guys I work with drives by there all the time. So he texted me. He said, hey man, I think a tire took out your front porch. What are you talking about? So he stops for me, took a picture. This is an hour ride for me. He stopped and took a picture for me and said, I think somebody's tire took your front porch out. So you can't see it in here, but there's actually a tire skid mark across the wall we had to clean off. Small fire, small issue. Did it stop us from showing the house? No, it was repaired within 24 hours. Not a big deal. Could it feel like it's the end of the world when you're showing houses? Like, yeah, in your head, you're like, oh my God, a tire hit the house. Like, what kind of damage did it do? This is the same house that they landed on where the realtor turned off one of the heating systems, the pipe bust, and we had to tear out all our brand new carpet and flooring and put new stuff in because somebody didn't know what they were doing. A realtor turned the heat off. Next. So, that's me. You can judge. But because of that picture, I had, I think, 900 views within 24 hours. So I want you guys to start thinking outside the box. Real estate now is, oh, I'll hire a photographer. Oh, he'll get the best pictures of the house. Oh, it looked great. Yeah, you in 1,000 other houses. So do something to stand out. For me, it was Homer Simpson. I think my fiance took these pictures and she just kind of rolling. She's like, what am I marrying into? Oh my God. But this got me a lot of attention. So there's been a couple properties in Baltimore that did the same thing. I've seen, who's the shark? Who got kids? Shark, something shark? Baby Shark, there you go. So Baby Shark was in one of the houses. Spider-Man was in another house. And all of them sold within, I think it was 48 to 72 hours, or had a contract on them in a short amount of time. Why? Because people are like, look at this idiot in a Homer suit trying to get attention. It worked. They got eyes on it. So when you guys renovate a property, make sure you do something that stands out. You don't want to be the normal person who just takes regular pictures. I pay a guy in Indonesia. I draw this out in a piece of paper. I send it to him, and he charges me $10 to do 3D imaging. $10. Is that worth it to get a different type of picture to see the layout of the house? For me, yeah, $10 is nothing. That's a drop in the bucket to get more eyes. Like, oh, okay, I see how the house flows now. Everybody has been doing the same kind of marketing for the last few decades. So if you can switch it up and make it stand out a little bit, do it. Next. All right, how do we find money? You have all types of ways to find money. Conventional loan, that's what everybody has done to buy their houses for the last 100 some odd years. We go to the bank, go to a broker or a bank and say, hey, I need some money. They say, okay, how much? All right, we'll lend you this much on it. You got to put 20% down or 3.5% down, whatever it might be. And that's how you used to get a house. Now there's a little bit more other ways to do it. You can lend from family and friends because we're a much wealthier community now. So your friends and family might have money to lend you. This area is a little tough because we're looking at $200,000 to $500,000 houses to start with. You go up to, say, Baltimore or Detroit, you might be able to get a house for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000. So your friends and family might be able to help you loan you money on that, and you can pay them like 10% until you can get a regular conventional loan on it. Hard money lender like these guys, hard money, you can go after them and say, hey, this is the property I'm interested in. What can you loan on me? Jay, I'm sure by this point is tired of me sending him stuff. I'll send him churches from 1843. I sent him a lighthouse. What else I sent you? A campground, I think. So I think outside the box. And we'll go into those in a couple minutes because there's another slide I'll show you. Mortgage broker will shop your loans around for you. Just remember, if you go to a mortgage broker, they pull your credit one time, and they shop it around with that. If you go to a whole bunch of different banks, every time you shop it around, they ding your score 3%, 4%, whatever it might be. So your credit score is going to start lowering. Now, if they pull your credit score within 30 days, they see it as 1, but it's still going to lower your score. So if you're concerned about your credit score, then this is something you need to pay attention to. Credit union, I've got a really good working relationship up in Frederick County with Nimeo. You have to like live, work, or worship in Frederick County to get a loan with them. But they're the best rates I've found around. NIH, Federal Credit Union, is another good one. If you can get in good with them, it's more of a face-to-face conversation. If you call them, say, hey, I need some help, they can kind of direct you. That relationship again, direct you like, hey, why don't you look at this instead? Or let's do this. And you can say, okay, well, what are my numbers? Oh, come on and sit down, we'll talk about it. Cool. You have that relationship where you can go, the best handshaker in the room is Scott. He's the kind of guy that will go around and be like, how can I help you? I'll get back to you. Why? Because he's personable. This is a good person to have a relationship with. Ma'am?
When you say you're going to a credit union,
I'm half deaf, darling.
when you say you're going to a credit union, are you going in your name or are you going in an LLC or a corporation?
So for me, I have some houses in my name. I have some houses in an LLC. Sometimes I go to them, they know who I am, and I say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy this house in an LLC. What direction should I go with? So I just had a conversation with the lawyer for Nimeo a couple of days ago. For some reason, I did an SDAT search for one of my properties, and it came up to an address in Florida. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, it's Aaron. My house's address is listed in Florida. I don't live in Florida. He goes, oh, we'll take care of it for you, no problem. Just sign this document. Cool. So he's like, why? Are you looking at buying something else? I said, yeah, I'm looking at buying. So my fiance's back there. I'm getting married in spring. So instead of renting a venue, we're trying to buy a venue. So I had a church from 1843 and a schoolhouse from 1873 under contract. He said, all right, this is how I want you to set it up. This is how I want you to buy it. So for me, when you have a credit union, a smaller local bank, or even a small local bank like Sandy Spring, you build a relationship with them so they know who you are, so you can go have these conversations, like because you have a relationship with them. So does that answer your question? Sometimes yes, sometimes no?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes you tell them, I haven't bought it yet, but should I build an LLC? In PG County, I found out the hard way that you have to pay like an extra fee or tax when you transfer it over from your name to your company's name. Even if you're a single sole proprietor, you still have to pay like an additional, I don't know, stupid percent. Owner finance, this is another great way to do it. You hear a lot about this stuff. Owner financing is where I have a house and I'm back with Moon. Moon wants to buy the house from me, right? So Moon's like, I don't have the money. You probably do have the money. You look like a baller. So Moon's like, I don't have the money. Can I give you a down payment and then you hold the financing for me until the house appraises for more or I get the cash flow coming in? Sure, Moon, I'll do that for you. So Moon, then I do owner financing, say 24 to 36 months. Moon has cash flow coming in, so we'll say $500 a month for 12 months. We'll say 400 because the 400 number is $4,800. 48, 96, what's after that? All right, we're in a couple, with past $10,000, we're in the teens. All right, so now he's cash flowed, say $15,000. Now he has the money to go put down on the property and get a regular loan on it. So that's your way to circumvent this, not being able to buy it, to ask me for owner financing. I've seen this a bunch of times, more out west in like West Virginia, where actually I know a girl out in West Virginia. She owns a bunch of properties in Morgantown, Harpers Ferry, and a couple other places. So she'll go get a loan on properties, and then she'll get she'll owner finance the properties to somebody else for a higher percentage, so she makes the money on the percentage. So she's like the middleman that gets the money. Does that make sense? Clear as mud. How to find houses. This is what everybody wants to know. This is where do I find properties at? All right. Real estate investment meetings. I've already had one guy. Where's my man at? Right there. He already came up to me, asked me if I can sell him a house. Right? Yeah. So he's the guy that buys houses. He might sell them too. You might find wholesalers there. So networking and building relationships with everybody around you is key for this kind of market. MRIS or MLS, realtors, they can see everything that most everybody else can see. Redfin, Zillow, Trulia, MLS. That's a good way to get it. I've bought a bunch of properties off of this. It's not always the best deal, but sometimes they're good deals. Craigslist. I advertise on Craigslist for properties for buying it off market. I had a guy recently reach out to me. He had a 60-acre farm that he wanted to partner on me with to develop and then sell it for a profit. It's not my thing. I passed them on to some other farmers I know up there that I have relationships with and said, this guy wants to sell off or build up these 60 acres in Myersville. Are you interested? So now I can call him and say, hey, farmer friend, can you help me with X, Y, and Z? He said, yeah, man, I'll give you a couple bales of hay. Wholesalers. So wholesaler is the guy where we went back and forth. He got a contract from me. Moon bought the house from me. Wholesalers are few and far between for good deals nowadays. The wholesaling guys like Terry Royce, who's normally here. He's like a raspy, short, bald, blonde guy. Real good people, real good at wholesaling, real good at what he does. But he's a wholesaler up in Baltimore and he knows the game. He finds them, he gets them under contract, and he finds a buyer for them. You want to be either the wholesaler or the buyer. You don't want to be the seller because the seller seems to lose out. It's a fast way for people to sell houses if they're in a tight spot. I started recently doing probate. I think Ian and I talked about doing probate, finding out who's died, and then doing skip tracing on them, finding their emails, and then sending this email saying, hey, sorry about your loss. I saw the property's coming up for sale, or the owner passed away. Is there anything I can do to help you out? Would you like me to buy the property? Would you like me to direct you to a good probate lawyer? Is there something I can do for you? Help me help you solve a problem. That's a very interesting market. You can get cussed out very quickly if you go the wrong way in your conversation. There's a guy that they're partnering with up in Philly. He does bootstrapping. He would literally go and knock on doors. Excuse me, would you like to sell your house? Nope. Okay. Excuse me, would you like to sell your house? Nope. Excuse me, don't pull a gun on me. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No, but you can go around to houses that are beat up and looking, like the green one I had up here. That was a beat up looking house. You can go knock on the door and say, hey man, you live in here? You know, is there anything I can buy this property from you, or can I do owner financing from you? Would you be interested in selling? Is there some way I can help you out? And say, yeah, man, or no, man, and just go from there. Build a relationship with them. So I've had luck with USDA, and so there's only two entities in the government that give loans: USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the VA, the military VA. So if you're in the military, you're past military, you can get your VA loan 100% financed. If you buy land in a rural area, you can get 100% financing on a house. Government Services Agency, they also sell houses like old bunkers, old lighthouses, old bases. They sell everything. I've bought a lot of stuff from the USDA, and I'll tell you about it now because it's not my honey hole anymore. The USDA used to have auctions. In terms of the government terms, they had to advertise somewhere the property. They didn't have to go to MLS, Zillow, Redfin, all that stuff. They didn't have to go there. So they advertised on their website alone that they had houses going up for foreclosure, and they told you what the minimum government bid would be. So another story for you. The guy who taught me about this was one of my battalion chiefs. He's now retired. He said he was driving, he lives in Pennsylvania, he commuted down from DC. So he lived in Adams County. He drove up to see one of the auctions on the way home. So he drove up. It was him and the auctioneer just sitting there, running their mouths. So he's like, so what's up with the house, man? He goes, well, you want to buy it? He's like, well, I just want to see the auction. He goes, well, how much is it selling for? He goes, well, the government bid's like $1,500. He's like, so how much do I need to give you? He's like, $1,501. I'll be right back. He went to his bank, he got $1,501. The numbers aren't, it's like below $2,000, whatever the numbers were. Got the numbers, gave him a check. He goes, well, you don't need to pay for it now, but you know, you can close on it and pay for it. He goes, no, I'll pay for the whole thing right now. I said, all right. So he turned around, put $10,000 into paint, landscaping, and updating some other things, and turned around and sold it for like $115,000. because he's the only person that sorry, words are hard. He's the only person that showed up at that auction that day because he's the only person that knew about the USDA auctions up there. I bought one house for 120, put 9,000 into it and sold for 240. They don't have these auctions in Maryland anymore. They closed the Maryland office and gave their entity to like Louisville, Kentucky, and then they couldn't take it over because they didn't have any contacts here. So they gave it to the VA. So now the VA handles all the USDA loans. The VA has their own website. They market on the MLS and everything else. It's usually a very small discount. The GSA is a little bit harder to deal with. I've noticed it seems like they only put it up when they know they can get what they want for it, because the government wants top dollar, obviously, but they're willing to take less if there's no interest in it. Target rentals. I was listening to Bigger Pockets podcast when I was coming in here today, and one of the things the guy commented on was, go on Zillow, go on Craigslist, go on everything. Look for the mom and pop places who don't have professional pictures, who don't have pictures at all, who have a very bad listing. Say, hey, 3-bed, 2-bath house for rent. Okay, well, what else am I getting with it? Ask them, like, hey, man, how long have you owned this property for? You be interested in selling? Do you have any other properties? Is there anything you'd be interested in selling as a package deal? Just try to get as many properties as you want to. If nothing else, build a relationship with them. FSBO is for sale by owner, same concept. Why are you guys getting rid of it? Do you need money? If not, if you can hold on to it for a while and you're still living there. Or the Make Me Move on Zillow, same concept. Email marketing, we buy homes, roadside signs, bandit signs that say we buy homes, all that kind of stuff. So you see a lot of this stuff in like the Baltimore area. You see the signs that say we buy homes, or you see the emails or the whatever it might be, we buy homes. So this is another way you can do it. You can go out and email everybody, whether it be probate or divorce court or whatever it might be. Reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested in buying your assets. What do you have? I had a guy in DC, every time somebody either died or divorced, he would get the probate list and try to buy their cars up. So he had like 15 cars, but they were awesome. All the cars were awesome. But he didn't want homes, he wanted cars. That was his jam. Online auctions, Hubzu, auction.com, whatever else. I don't like these. I don't. Because in Maryland, it's in person. It's illegal to put a bidder in the audience who doesn't plan on buying the house. You cannot bid somebody up. Online, that law is out the window. If the bank wants more, the bank will bid you up, bid you up, bid you up. And then when you go and say, oh, I won, sweet, getting a deal on it. They say, you did not meet the reserve, but we'll sell it to you for this price instead. You say, man, I'm not making a deal on that. Nah, I don't want it. So they put it back on the market knowing what you'll pay for it, and then start the whole process over and over and over again. So I know people who have bought on them, they'll go through these auction sites and go through the process like 6 times. Is it worth it to me? No, I don't want to sit in front. I stare at my screen enough. I don't want to sit in front of my screen and look at it all day. So if this is your jam and you don't mind sitting in front of a computer, or if you have a desk job and you're like, oh, let me just scoot the spreadsheet across. Like, I'll be on auctions.com. No, I'm doing work, boss. I'm doing work. Don't nothing to see here. In-person auctions. Alex Cooper. I didn't write the rest of this out. I don't know why. But there's a couple big names in the area. Alex Cooper is one of them. AJ Billings is another one. If you get in their auction, I'm sorry. Harvey West is another one, yeah. So if you go on their websites, they'll give you a whole list of different auctions that they're going to be doing. You can go to them in person. You don't have to worry about somebody bidding you up like they do online. It's good. All right, building houses. So we've had guys here speak that build houses, and that's fantastic. But there's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. So you can go buy a cabin on Amazon.com right now for under $15,000, under $10,000 actually. But does it fit spec? No. Why? Because you have to build to county spec. So your build out cost is anywhere from say $90 to $150 starting range. Then you got to pay for the floor plans, the land cost, the well and septic or tied into the public water, the impact fees, site development, setback lots and rules, minimum house size. So we're going to highlight a couple of these things. Land cost, we'll say it's $100,000 for the land cost, right? So I think Montgomery County is $30,000 or $40,000 impact fee. That impact fee goes to the government. They get their cut. That's all it goes to. It doesn't help you out at all. It goes to the school systems, it goes to public utilities, But you're paying not just for the $100,000 for land cost, now you're doing $100,000 and $40,000, and you haven't even started building your house yet. Site development, it depends. Are there a bunch of trees there? Is there water there? Is there a stream? So I went through this with the chapel that I was looking at to make it a wedding venue. To make it from a wedding venue into a house, they told me I had to pay impact fees. I think it was $15,000. So off the break, I'm out of pocket $15,000 for a structure that's been there for 175 years. I'm like, okay, so now my build out's gonna cost $15,000 more, plus everything else inside of it. Doesn't make sense. I'll be into this thing for $200,000 or $300,000. Can I get that back in rent? It's tight, and it's built 175 years ago. Is it worth it for me to put the money into that, or try to find something else that's newer in the last decade to build? This is a good consideration. Some of the things have changed. Some of the things have changed. Like 2x6s are now used for structures instead of 2x4s. 2x4s have shrunken over the years. They're not true 2x4s. 2x6s is closer. So for insulation, it makes more sense to put 2x6s up. So your cost for building a house goes up, a couple $1,000s off of framing alone. So when you look at building and developing a property, make sure you know all of the things that go into these. Any questions about that? It's kind of vague, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just buying a house on Amazon, putting it on the land and being like, homestead. Questions? All right. Tax liens and deeds. So I've done a couple dozen of these. We'll go over two different ways. Come on up here. Come on. Come on up here. All right. His name is?
Joe. Timmy.
Timmy? All right, Timmy and Joe. I have a house I haven't paid my taxes on, right? Timmy?
Joe.
Joe. He's Timmy.
It's easy.
It's easy. It is easy. I'm tired, man. So I'm the government. I'm sorry, I'm not the government. He's the government. I think that's light. Scoot over. 2 feet. All right, it's very distracting. So I have the house I haven't paid my taxes on, right? He wants to buy the house. He wants to buy the lien. He says, he's the government. He's like, all right, you pay me this guy's money that he owes on the taxes, and I'll give you a lien on the property.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So I owe $5,000 on this property, right?
Okay.
You're gonna go to him, say, hey man, I'm gonna pay his money for $5,000. All right, so now he has a lien on the property. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Cool. He has the first lien on the property so he can put me into foreclosure. I say, no, please, I'll pay you back. Okay, government rules are, you pay, each county, each jurisdiction has different rules for how much they pay back. PG County is 21, I think Baltimore is 20% a year. So now I have to pay government back the $5,000 that he paid for my fees, and after 4 months in PG County, I now have to pay the government the $5,000 plus the lawyer fees, and if it goes on for another year, I have to pay the government the first year in taxes, the second year in taxes, the lawyer fees, and the 21%. So I pay it back. I'm like, God, I want to keep my house. Here's my money. Take my money. Just take it. So he then gives him the $5,000 for the first year. Go and give him the money. $5,000. Here's 21% for that year. He gets 21%. Here's the lawyer fees. Pay him back. I get to keep my house now. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
All right, I can't afford the $5,000. I can't afford to pay him back. So I'm gonna step out of the picture. So he paid him $5,000 for my taxes. I can't pay him back. He goes to a lawyer and he has a lawyer put it into foreclosure. The government says, all right, as long as we got our money, this is the government, as long as we've got our money, we're good. He said, okay, I'm gonna get my lawyer this thing through a foreclosure process. My last foreclosure process took 2 years in PG. I got the property. He's happy now. He's got a property for $5,000 the first year, $5,000 the second year, and lawyer fees. So we're into it for, say, $15,000, and it's a $100,000 property. Who made out in this deal? He did. And the government's happy because why? They got their money. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So does that make sense for tax liens? I got a whole lot of hands going up. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, so I've heard that concept before. Okay, don't judge me, I'm new to this. But I recently saw a commercial on TV because you have equity in your home now. So you were saying that the original owner, you, and then go back and claim the money that you put back into the house. So how does that whole process work?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer. But if you have equity in the house, you can refinance, get that money back out, and pay off what you owe. That's what I would do. But some people don't think outside the box.
The guy was saying basically it went into foreclosure. Tim got the house.
Right.
But as
Timmy took my house.
basically.
Timmy.
But as the original owner, because your taxes were less than what the house, what you know, so there was equity in your house essentially. So let's say there was $60,000 worth of equity in the house.
Okay.
That you're entitled to part of that equity that was in the house.
I've never heard of that.
Above and beyond what's due, I believe.
Is that above and beyond what's due?
$5,000, someone bids 10 grand, and 5 grand goes back to the owner, but the owner has to claim.
Right. We're going to do baseline because there's a whole equation for this stuff when you bid on it at auction, or you can buy the leftover liens at some jurisdictions. Like in Baltimore, there's like a 100-page leftover lien book you can buy and buy at face value. Some places you cannot buy at face value. Sir.
Yeah, don't you have to, and say they don't pay, don't you have to go and do a foreclosure?
Go through the foreclosure
Like 2
process.
years? Isn't the biggest problem with like the banks usually is they have,
The banks will pay it off sometimes.
okay,
I'll give you an example in a second. Question?
So my question said, this tax continues to be in first position.
First position.
Be in first position even over the mortgage company or the bank? This whole
Every jurisdiction is different. So IRS, the government always takes first position on lien. Then it's usually taxes, and then it falls between water contractor, HOA, and a couple other different ones. So the higher your lien position can potentially wipe out the rest of them. So the government obviously wipes out everybody. So if they put a lien in your house and take your property from you, then they wipe out everybody else's lien. So if you have a contractor lien on that property and they foreclose on it, the contractor's not getting their money. Sir?
go after the trust, different animal.
Different animal. Don't know enough about it to have a conversation. But if you want to teach me, we'll exchange numbers. All right. So let's do tax deed. So I've only had a very little experience with tax deed. Tax deed is similar to tax lien. Okay? Tax deed is where you go to the auction, you take the deed of the house. Once you win, you now own the house. I think they do this in Pennsylvania. So I now own the house. Great little house, live up in Lancaster. Or not live in Lancaster. I'm trying to buy a house so I can live in Lancaster, got a tax deed on the property. But I didn't do my due diligence, I didn't do a title search. I didn't see that there's a water lien, a contractor's lien, a government lien, whatever lien it might be, gangster lien, whatever kind of lien there might be. But now, as the owner of the property, I hold the deed, now I have to go back and pay off all those liens. So you might have $100,000 in liens, but you got a $100,000 house. It's a wash, it's a break even. You just bought a house and didn't make it really a profit. It's could be underwater, you could have equity in it, I don't know. But tax deed is a different animal than tax lien. In Maryland, I think it's all tax liens. In other states, it could be tax deeds. You can go on one of the websites, you can Google it, and every day or every month there are tax liens for sale all over the country. I just got an email earlier about some liens in like Idaho. Go buy in Poughkeepsie, Idaho, Dollar Reserve. So you can buy a lien on a property for $1. I'm like, I don't know anything about Poughkeepsie, Idaho, but I'll learn if there's money there. So you can go anywhere it's in here. Like PG, once a year, I think PG County is April, May, June, and then Baltimore, I don't remember to be honest with you. It's been so long since I looked up there. But if you go to Baltimore, the courthouse, you can pay $10 to get a stack of papers, and it has all the properties that you can purchase at face value and not have to bid at auction. Sir, I see you guys. I see it coming. Yeah.
If the mortgage company pays off the loan, you get stuck with you already paid for the.
If the mortgage company pays it off, you still get your percentage.
Still do?
Yes. Whoever, it doesn't matter who pays it off, you still get your percentage.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So my buddy Rashad did this in DC, and DC is very pro homeowner, not investor. So he did this whole thing, went through the foreclosure, and they're like, okay, you lose the house because you didn't pay for it. So he was expecting to get this house, and the government just said, we're not giving it to you. We're going to give her longer. So he's like, okay, then pay me my 20%. They said, nah, we'll pay you the first couple months. We're not paying you anything more. Sue us. Anybody who's dealt with DC is like, ah. So in his case, he thought he was getting a property. He wasn't, because the government wasn't helpful. They weren't pro investor. They were pro homeowner, or more pro renter than anything else. So it was a little elderly lady. He didn't know this going in. He thought it was a vacant property. So he bid on it. He won. He was supposed to get the 2 years of the 20% each year, and it ended up being like 36 months. So he didn't get the last 36 months of that income from the percentage. Does that make sense? Clear as mud. Got it.
Does it normally take 2 years to go through the process?
I think some jurisdictions you can do it within a month. Almost all of my experience, I've only had, so of all the dozens of tax liens I've done so far, I've only won one. And it was because the bank paid off the taxes. So the owner owned the parcel of land next to it, which is an acre, and they owned the acre which had a house on it. The government, the mortgage company paid off the taxes on the house and the land it was on, but they did not pay off the acre of land next to it. So that's the one I got a tax lien on. It went 2 years through foreclosure. The bank said, we don't want it, you can have it. So I ended up putting it took 2 years, bought it for like $1,500. After all was said, I think it was $9,000 for lawyer fees. And then I turned around and sold it on Craigslist in like 48 hours for $28,000, $30,000, something like that. Yeah, so it's a good chunk of change, but that's not the norm. It's not probably going to happen. Next. All right, so these are two of the ones I've done before. This was off of Atkins Road down by Capitol Heights Metro. Taxes were $5,000. At 21%, I made a profit of $2,100. The house was paid for. The guy inherited it from his grandmother. I thought it was vacant. She had passed away. He didn't know he had to pay taxes on a property. He just thought he could live there for free and just pay utilities. So I reached out to him. I sent him a letter, said, hey man, like, this house is going to get foreclosed on. I don't want to take your house from you. I just want to get paid. And he was like, who is this guy trying to scam me? I don't owe you nothing. So then after like the foreclosure letters came from the lawyer is like, you're going to get evicted. So he's like, oh, I do got to pay it. So he had to pay $2,100 after 2 years for the 21%, plus my lawyer fees, which you can do after 4 months. If you do it before 4 months, the investor, me, has to pay those lawyer fees. If you wait for 4 months and on, the homeowner has to pay those lawyer fees. So that's one property I've done. This is the acre of land. There's an acre of land next to a house. Same thing down at Keek, Maryland. It's $1,200. Paid it for, I guess it was 3 years, and the lawyer fees ended up going for $9,000 was into it, and I sold it in 72 hours, $28,000. The numbers are approximate. They're not exact, but that's pretty much what the numbers were. Think outside the box. So anybody here familiar with DC? All right. Anybody familiar with Catholic University? You got it. That's right. So these are shipping containers. These two guys from Catholic, I think it was, they bought an apartment complex. They knocked the whole apartment complex down. They got shipping containers and stacked it basement, first floor, second floor, third floor. And they rent for like $1,500 or $1,800 a month, something like that. And it's based upon college kid rental. It's 4 units on each floor with a central common area, bathroom, living area, whatever else. So these kids are paying to live $1,500 to $1,800 in a Connex box. You think that's bad? The flooring, what kind of wood do you think they used? Not even linoleum. Not even concrete. You guys are going high end. Not even laminate. What do you put on roofs? Plywood. They got plywood walls and plywood floors. Serious, and they're paying buku loot. Huh? It is. If that ever catches on fire, I'm cooked. I'm done. Because if I go in there, that just holds heat. Yeah, they passed it because they put sprinklers in. So this was something that me as a firefighter had to look through because of the situation it was. So when I say think outside the box, but have us in mind. I don't want to cook. I don't want to be a big chicken. 3305 7th Street, you can drive by and see it. It's an interesting structure. Just something to think about. All right, so tiny house community is a big thing now. You can buy land. You can put tiny houses on it. They can rent it. You can buy land that's commercial. You can have guys pay, I think the going rate right now is $300 for a truck to park on land if it's done commercial. This is one thing. I've been looking at campsites, and we were just talking about storage units, about purchasing them. Why? Because what's my overhead for a whole bunch of rocks, a picnic table, a fire pit, dirt, maybe electricity, maybe water hookup? Minimal. It's just the land clearing. But they're paying me this is 34, that's the national average, I think it was. Say they're paying $30 a night. $30 a night, 30 days in a month, $900. For dirt, rock, a stump. These stumps sell for like $100 on Amazon. Did y'all know that? Who buys that? A fire ring. So this is one of the things I'm looking at, because if you get a big enough land, it's in Frederick County, if it's zoned agricultural and you have 10 acres or more, they'll approve certain campsites. So that's what I've been looking at. RV park, same thing. Same as a trailer park. The person who owns the house, you don't have to maintain it because they own, we'll say this is a house. We'll imagine this is a house. They own the house. They pay you a lot fee of, I think, $400 to $600 on average for the U.S. So you don't do anything except maintain the roads, the utilities, and like their front gate options. So they have to maintain the places they're living in. Is that a good option for you? Yeah, you have minimal overhead. You full of questions tonight.
I'm a newbie, so I'm good.
I like it. Let's rock.
Only dumb questions when I don't ask. So I'm a former Girl Scout. So I was actually interested in the
campgrounds.
When you get into that, I would like to talk to you about that.
All right.
With the tiny home thing, if you decide to do that, do you still have to pay that land tax fee, whatever?
The impact fee?
Yeah, impact fee.
No, because you're not tying into utilities. So Montgomery County just passed a adjunct structure law, and I don't know it enough to have a conversation about it, but you're allowed to have an in-law suite or a mother's suite on a house or on a property now. So you can put a tiny home on a property, and mom or grandma or stepmom or whoever it might be can live in there, or you can rent it out. There is a place over off of South Capitol Street, no, North Capitol Street in DC, where they bought a pie-shaped piece of land that backs up to a cemetery, and they put 4 tiny houses on it, and they charged like $800 a month in rent just to have a tiny house to park in DC. So there's money to be made. Just got to think outside the box. All right, short-term rentals. Now I told you guys I bid on a lighthouse. I'm not joking. I bid $80,000 on a lighthouse. Why? Why would I do something stupid like that? This one is the frying pan. This is down off of down in Norfolk area, down in Virginia. So they were charging $500 to $600 a night per person. So if you want to go on a fishing trip with 5 of your buddies for one night, times $500, it's $2,500 a night. They bought this lighthouse, I think for, I want to say like $10,000. So I rent this thing out for a weekend. I have it paid off. The maintenance on it is sky high though. They now changed their business mentality to let's do timeshares instead. So it's $25,000 for 1 week to stay at this lighthouse, which I think is like 8 miles off the coast. So you gotta take a boat to get there, climb up a set of stairs, and then you have this whole living area, and then you have a helicopter pad on top and a lighthouse you can chill out in. The last hurricane that came through, they actually put a camera up there so you could watch the hurricane come through. It was kind of cool. This is a firehouse. This is old 4-engine in DC. They just made a show about them on one of the Netflix channels. So he charges $700 a night for the front. He lives in the back half of the firehouse. The front house he charges $700. He actually paid a friend of mine to bring his fire truck down there from Rockville to park in the front to make it look cool. Well, you figure $700 a night, 30 nights in a month. How much is that? $21,000. Yeah. We have a guy that's been here before, one of our friends, Pete. He's got a duplex up in Baltimore by Towson. It's a stacked duplex, one up, one down, and he makes, I think, $7,000 and $8,000 cleared for each unit for 1 month, short-term rentals. But we just sold our rental in Ocean City because you're dealing with 1 to 3 contracts a week, and the headache of dealing with 1 to 3 contracts is a pain. All the emails, all the back and forth, and we weren't making that much money on the off season. So I think we were making a $5,000 a year profit on that property. We sold that, paid for a townhouse up in Walkersville, and now we're tripling our income because it's 1 contract, 1 person, no turnover. I was just looking at doing short-term rentals somewhere, I don't remember where it was, but turnovers were 75 to 150 bucks a night. So if I'm renting it out for say 300 bucks a night and it takes 2 hours to clean, I'm only making 150 bucks a night. Is it worth it for me at that point? No, because I don't want to do 30 contracts in a month. It's just not worth my time. If it's automated system, then yeah, it makes sense. These guys, Getaway, if you look them up on Facebook or Instagram, they buy these cabins for $30,000, have them delivered, $30,000. They rent for $99, I think to $249, I think this is wrong now, $99 to $249, and then if you want to bring your dog with you, it's an extra $40. So people want to disconnect from the busy hustle and bustle of our area. So they're paying these numbers like it's going out of style. I was just sitting back in the back with a couple friends of mine, and we're looking it up, and they have like LA, 2 parts of New York, New Jersey, I think Vermont, the Ray Caverns. They've got like 8 places they have these at now. So you figure if they're paying 200 bucks a night, somebody pull your phone out and do calculations, because I'm not gonna do this. $30,000 divided by 200 bucks. It should be paid off in 3 months, 4 months, give or take, and then everything after that's profit. Is that worth it to you? Campground, something like this? To me it is. Yeah, something like this would be worth it, because it's cash flowing.
You gotta have somebody in there.
Yeah, so I would, if it were me, so I'm looking into this right now. If it were me, I would hire somebody to live on compound. I would provide something like this for them to live in, and I would have them manage the whole property and give them a free place to stay. It's a quid pro quo, barter.
How do you buy the campground?
How do you buy the campground?
Or the rental?
So you can go on, there's actually RV and campground websites where you can buy them. And they are a lot more expensive than you think they are. Because I looked, I was like, I'm gonna buy me a campground. Went on the website, I was like, I'm not buying a campground. Millions, you're looking at millions of dollars for campsites, unless you make one. If you develop one, it's a whole lot more money in your pocket. So something to keep in the back of your head. Short-term rentals, you can make a lot more money. It's a lot more management, it's a lot more hands-on. Long-term's less hands-on, less management. Good. All right, so relationships, I think we talked about this pretty extensively so far. I bought a house because I have relationships with my HVAC guy and his father-in-law. I've had contractors work with me because of relationships we have. I've gotten good deals because of relationships we have with other guys. The tree I just had taken down for $3,500. One of my buddies owns a company. Every other quote I got was $6,000 to $12,000 for it, but because I have a relationship with him, it's $3,500. So what you do and how you act towards other people makes a big impact in your reputation and your business model going forward. So make sure you treat other people the way you want to be treated, like Mom used to say. In this market, your name will, if you start doing stuff, people will know your name. If you've got a bad name with contractors or lenders, then they're not going to work with you, so you're not going to go get money or help. So work with each other, treat each other well. And I think it's the last one. No, that's me. You can friend request me on Facebook. My stuff is not about real estate. My stuff is 10-year-old humor because I'm a big kid. But if you want to get a hold of me, you can email me. You can find me on Facebook. I'm not active on Twitter. I'm not Trump. But I've tried to be active on Facebook. So you guys can do, if you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm not a mentor. I'm not a kind of guy who can take on people. But if you ever want to have a good conversation about any of this we talked about, I love a good conversation about real estate. I can talk about it for hours. Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody have anything? I went over a lot of stuff. Ma'am?
How many hours a week do you spend on real estate since you work full-time?
This is my hobby. So I'll tell you one of the reasons I got heavy into real estate. Do you guys remember the house fire where the Greek family got tortured and murdered in DC a couple years ago? Okay, so I was in that house fire. I was the one that put it out. I kicked the door in, and I got hurt. I tore my ankle up. I tore all the ligaments off my ankle, and they tried to retire me. So I was like, what am I going to do? Like, my income from my retirement is like $18,000 a year. It's like, man, that sucks. I'm going to be poor. Poorer, more poor than I was. So I was like, let me focus on real estate. That's what got me into it, right? So every day I listen to podcasts. I don't listen to music in my truck anymore when I'm driving. I usually listen to podcasts about real estate. When I'm home, if I'm with my fiance, obviously we're watching TV and kicking back and doing almost newlywed things. But if I'm not with her, I'm reading books, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm running numbers on properties. So before I came here tonight, I was on Redfin and I was like, ooh, new house came up. Let's run the numbers. All right, that one doesn't make sense. Ooh, can I make this one work? No. But you can talk yourself into deals like, oh, it's not going to cost me $30,000 renovation, it'll be $20,000. Then you talk yourself into a deal. So make sure you're confident in the numbers that you plug in for these. So to answer your question, I don't have a set number. It's something I enjoy doing and talking about. So it could be like 2 hours a day. It could be 5. Just depends on how hungry I am. Since my chapel, I had the Church of Aaron up in Frederick was going to happen. Since that fell through, the wedding venue, now I'm focused on, all right, what do I put my money towards next? Because that was going to be like my big breakthrough to be a millionaire one day, and it didn't work. So now I'm like, okay, I'm back on the grind of trying to find properties.
That greenhouse that you had, you said there was 15 other flyers on the door. How did you get yours to stand out?
I didn't. I did so the green one, it was in Temple Hills. It was 3 houses. It was not a foreclosure. That's the one where the renter took, or the owner had a for sale by owner. She didn't pay. It was a 9-year eviction. His son-in-law, it was my HVAC guy, and his other sons work with me in the fire department. So he asked them first, and they're like, no, not interested. And since I know the whole family, they said, hey man, are you interested? And I was like, 3 houses for $160,000? Yeah. But there's a house down the street from there where I put a flyer on the door. I was like, hey, if you're interested in selling, let me know. And I got a call. And they're like, oh, we want $300,000 for it. I'm like, all right, first of all, this is Temple Hills. There's no $300,000 houses down in this neighborhood. But they're just trying to see what they can get for it. It was a probate deal. Apparently mom passed away. The only reason I took notice of it was because the grass was 3-year-old height, and the gutters were starting to grow trees in it. So those are the kind of ones you just want to be like, hey, help me help you. How can we make this work? Ma'am?
If you have a small amount of cash, how would you go about trying to negotiate buying a couple of houses from somebody with a portfolio? So you want to buy 2 or 3 at a time?
So portfolio loans are a different animal than the regular ones. You can do hard money, see how much it's worth on the back end. They'll loan X amount of dollars on you, see if you can cover the difference. One thing I learned about doing, some guys were doing in College Park, were I don't want to buy your house. I want to rent your house for $1,500, but I want to Airbnb and manage it. So it's less money out of your pocket, but I'm going to Airbnb it and make $3,000 a month, and then pay you $1,500.
That's seller financing.
Seller finance is a good one. Yeah, Scott's right. Yep.
And if you have equity in other real estate, maybe your primary can cross collateralize.
Yep. Scott would be a good one to pick his brain about. He's the banking dude. I'm just a dude. Questions anymore? I need easy questions, not hard ones. Sir?
What percentage of your deals are no money down?
I can't hear a thing.
What percentage of your deals are no money down?
Now? I don't know. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on the deal. Like the $160,000 one, I think I went to you guys. You guys loaned on that one. I think you gave me the full amount or close to it, and I just paid for the renovations. So I didn't come out of pocket except for renovations for that one. But I knew going into it, so I paid for an appraisal ahead of time, and they said if you're going to do these renovations, we'll appraise it for $325 or $525 or something, whatever the number is, and we'll give you this much money. So I did them to close, and I went to, I took the appraisal, I went straight to the bank and said this is what it appraises for as is, this is what it appraises for after repair value, ARV. And they said, okay, we'll give it to you. So I just turned around and paid them off as soon as possible. So I didn't really come out of pocket that much for that one. That was just renovations. So the renovations, so the BRRRR, has everybody heard of the BRRRR strategy? It's really big on bigger pockets. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So your concept is, I want to buy it, I want to renovate it, I want to get a renter in there, I want to cash flow, refinance, get all the money I have invested into it back in my pocket, and then move on to the next one. So every one of my properties now that I have, that's what I've done, is BRRRR. Except for the only one I have money wrapped up into is the one in Indian Head.
You still have 50 properties, or you've done 50 properties?
I've done like 50 deals, give or take. I mean, yeah, it is a lot. It's a lot. It's fun. Some of them are fun. A lot of those deals, so I don't want to come off like I'm some kind of guru, because I'm not. I'm just a dude who does this and enjoys it. So a lot of those weren't buy and holds and flips. Some of those were tax liens and tax deeds. So I've done a bunch of flips. I've done a bunch of buy and holds. I've done a bunch of tax liens. It's a combination of everything. But I like, if you focus on one thing, the hardest part is pulling the trigger for one deal. Once you pull that first trigger and you figure out, okay, I can get my money back and do it on the next one, no, that makes a whole lot more sense now. Now I can go on to the next one, do the same thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. It's just this market's very inflated in the DC area because DC is such a strong market. The same thing in Boston and New York and San Francisco. I think the new builds right now to build in DC is $1,000 a square foot for sales. So if you buy a 1,000 square foot condo, it's $1,000 a square foot. That's baller money. I don't have that. So there's all types of deals out there. Learn about all of them. Don't stick to one. HGTV is unrealistic. You don't buy a house for $100,000 and sell it for $200,000 and then make a $100,000 profit. It's not how it works. So just go into this knowing the numbers. The numbers are the biggest thing for real estate. If your numbers are wrong, you can lose tens of thousands of dollars easily. If you don't find issues with the property, like a wall that's falling in, a house I just looked at in Kent Island, I saw shoring material in the houses because they were trying to shore the walls up. I'm like, I know that's going to be another $10,000. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So just know your numbers when you go into this.
For a newbie, would you say it's best to go in with a contractor to look at stuff?
Do you trust the contractor?
Yeah.
A lot? Like very well? I'm not knocking it. So I've got a lot of contractor friends, and some of them are idiots. I love them. I'll have them over for Thanksgiving. But when they come to numbers, I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? I know better than that.
If it's someone that you trust.
If you trust and know, yeah, I would look at all properties with them if they're willing to go with you. So I had a guy in Walkersville, he would send his contractor out to all of his properties when he looked at them. He made him his real estate, so he's a realtor, it was like his assistant, right? So he would give him the codes to all these houses, and he'd go back and say, all right, Tom, this house is gonna cost $30,000 to renovate. And he'd say, okay. So he buys them, and then the guy who had the assistant would go and renovate all the properties for him. Like, that was their deal. So he kept them busy buying properties, and he kept them busy buying houses. But he didn't have to go out and look at houses, the contractor did. He did all the driving, he did all the appraisals, he did everything. So he's like, I don't know why he's working for the other guy. No idea. Because he could do it himself and make 6 times the money.
Don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So the hardest thing of this is you don't know what you don't know. Another story, since if I'm gonna run long, I might as well just run long. I got a buddy of mine, he's a chief in DC. He said, I want to get into this. I said, all right, cool. So he bought a house in Laurel, Maryland, and PG County side. And instead of listening to me and saying, I was like, all right, man, do this, this, and this. He said, all right, cool. And he didn't do this, this, and this. He did this, 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 and this, and this, and this, this, and this. He tore down, he didn't like popcorn ceilings, so he tore the ceilings out of the whole house. He wanted to, instead of getting a custom bathtub, he was like, I don't want to get a custom bathtub. I don't want to have to pay for a custom bathtub. I'll just make the bathroom bigger. Knocked out the bathroom and moved the bathroom 6 inches to fit this tub in there. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you spending so much money in this renovation? So he didn't listen to me. He still made about $50,000 profit, which is unrealistic for a first-time investor. My hat's off to him. But he could have made 20 or 30,000. He also did all the work himself. He's like, I'm going to tear it all out myself. That's what we do. You pay us as firefighters to go in and literally break everything you have and pay us for it. So he's like, I'm going to do that. All right, cool. So he tore out all the walls, all the ceiling, and then replaced it all himself instead of hiring somebody to come in and give him a hand, and probably would have saved him 3 months and $20,000. So when you do this stuff, make sure you know your numbers and what your options are. Have a good contractor that you trust look over it. Don't move a bathroom over 6 inches. Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's give Aaron one more round of applause. Aaron's going to stick around for a few more minutes. You can just hang out right around here for a little bit. So any other questions you have to ask, feel free. He'll be around. Tony from Hard Money Bankers as well, if you need any money for your next deal. He's right there with the beard and the HMB shirt. I want to thank everybody again for coming out. The next meetup is September 18th, I guess, the third Wednesday of September. So hope to see everybody there. Thanks again.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming up and working with me.